Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are opening up a file that is, well, to be honest, it's a bit of a paradox. When I first looked at the source material for this week, I'll admit I was a little intimidated. It's dense, it's philosophical,
Oh, it's heavy.
it uses some terminology that feels very heavy, but, and this is a big but once you actually crack the code of what it's saying, the ultimate goal is incredibly simple. It's almost startlingly simple.
It really is. It's one of those texts where, you might have to read a paragraph 3 or 4 times
Right.
just to get the syntax, but then suddenly it just clicks, and you realize it's completely rewriting the script on how you view your own life.
Right.
It's offering a huge lens shift.
We are looking at a text called Wholeness and Spirit. And honestly, reading the notes, I thought we were going to be talking about quantum physics for a minute. It talks about time collapsing, energy, potential, the nature of reality. But then it pivots and starts talking about theology and psychology. It's a very unique intersection.
It is. What we're looking at specifically is a breakdown of the relationship between the body, the mind, and time. And the central tension here, the thing that drives the whole argument, is a choice.
A choice.
Yeah, the text argues that we are constantly, in every single second, choosing between two masters, and that one choice dictates whether we feel trapped in our lives or completely free.
And it's not just abstract philosophy. There's some claims in here that are frankly bold. I mean, the idea that the body is just a learning aid that we are supposed to outgrow.
Right.
That's a heavy concept to drop on someone before they've had their morning coffee.
It is bold, but if you follow the logic, it really holds together.
And then there's this concept of the collapse of time, which, let's be real, sounds like a sci-fi movie plot.
Totally.
But the text presents it as a strategy for, well, for happiness.
Exactly. The text is essentially trying to move us from a state of separation, where we need words and bodies and time to bridge the gap between us, to a state of what it calls direct communication. It's a heavy lift, but if you stick with the logic, it's incredibly empowering.
Well, that's our mission today. We are going to deconstruct this text, strip away some of the jargon, and figure out what it actually means to collapse time, and why we might be living our lives upside down without even realizing it.
Let's dive in.
Okay, so I want to start with the most tangible thing we have, our bodies. We wake up in them, we feed them, we drag them to the gym. But this text starts with a comparison that I think most people wouldn't make. It compares the miracle to the body.
Yes. And to understand that, we first have to clarify what this source means by a miracle. It's not necessarily, parting the Red Sea or pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
Right.
Here, a miracle is a shift in perception. It's a tool for correcting your vision. And the text says, the miracle is much like the body in that both are learning aids.
Learning aids. My mind immediately goes to, like, training wheels on a bike.
That's a perfect analogy. Or let's use an academic one. Think about a textbook in a Chemistry 101 class. That textbook is absolutely essential. You cannot learn the subject without it. It has the formulas, the diagrams, the instructions. But is the goal of the class for you to carry that heavy textbook around in your backpack for the rest of your life?
No, definitely not. The goal is to get the chemistry into your brain so you can do the work without the book. You want to internalize it.
Precisely. The text is arguing that the body is a device. It's a medium for communication and for learning. But the ultimate goal of any learning aid is to render itself unnecessary.
Yeah.
If you are still clinging to the training wheels when you're 40 years old, the aid has become a crutch. It's actually hindering you.
So this text is suggesting a state of being where we don't need the hardware anymore. That feels, well, it feels like death, doesn't it?
I can see why it sounds that way, but the text frames it as graduation. It points towards spirit's original state of direct communication.
Direct communication.
Think about it this way. Right now, if I want to tell you that I understand you, I had to form thoughts, turn those thoughts into electrical signals, move my tongue and jaw to make sound waves. Those waves travel through the air, hit your eardrum, and your brain decodes them.
It's a whole process.
It's a process. It takes time. It's filtered.
And things get lost in translation all the time.
Exactly. The text posits that in our natural state, the state of spirit communication is instant and total. No filter, no medium, no misunderstanding.
That's wild. It's like we're currently using dial-up internet with a screeching modem, and the text is describing a direct fiber optic link into the mainframe.
Or no cables at all, just pure data transfer.
But here's the rub, and I think the text acknowledges this. We're here. We are in these bodies. We can't just wish them away or pretend they don't exist. So what do we do in the meantime?
And it's very practical about the now. It says, while we are in this state, we have a continuous choice of how we use the device. It distinguishes between using the body for loveless channels of expression and miraculous ones.
This is the part that really struck me. The idea of the empty shell. The text says, you can make an empty shell, but you cannot express nothing at all.
That's a fascinating warning against passivity, isn't it? I think we often believe that if we just withdraw, if we sit on the couch, stare at the wall, and refuse to engage with the world, that we're opting out, that we're neutral.
Right, like we're in standby mode.
But the text argues that doesn't exist. You can make your life look like an empty shell. You can paralyze your behavior. But you are always transmitting something.
Always.
Even your silence is a message. Even your withdrawal is a form of expression. You are broadcasting your state of mind 200/7.
You can't turn the transmitter off.
You can't. Because, and this is a key metaphysical point in the text that I found really reassuring, you did not create yourself.
Wait, unpack that for me. Why does the fact that I didn't create myself matter for my creativity or my expression?
Well, think about the logic. If you had built yourself, if you were the architect of your own soul, you would have the power to dismantle it. You could destroy yourself. You could turn the off switch. But because your potential comes from a higher source God, in the language of this text, that potential is permanent. It's part of your factory settings, and you don't have admin access to delete it.
So I can refuse to use my creativity, I can suppress it, I can ignore it, but I can't kill it.
Exactly. You can paralyze your expression, you can delay your purpose, but you cannot abolish your power. It's like having a high-performance Ferrari in your garage. You can refuse to turn the key, you can let it rust, you can heap boxes of junk on top of it so you can't even see it. But the engine is still an engine. It's still capable of horsepower. It hasn't turned into a cardboard box just because you're treating it like one.
And the miracle in this context is a decision to finally clear off the junk and turn the key.
Yes, to use the body for connection rather than separation. To use the learning aid for its intended purpose, which is, at the end of the day, communication.
Which brings us to the other big constraint we live with besides the body, time. This is my favorite part of the reading because I feel like everyone I know is obsessed with time management. We're all trying to save time.
Right.
But this text talks about time control in a way I've never heard before.
The time control factor.
Yeah.
It sounds like something out of a physics lecture or a sci-fi novel, but it's deeply spiritual.
Usually we think of time as a river, right? We're just floating in it. We can't speed it up. We can't slow it down. We just have to endure it.
But the text says the miracle worker, the person who has shifted their perception, accepts the time control factor. The decision is not to wait on time any longer than is necessary.
Okay, so let's get concrete here because time control sounds very abstract. What does that mean practically? How do we not wait on time? Are we talking about like productivity hacks?
No, it's not about getting more emails done in an hour. It's about spiritual efficiency. Think about how much time we spend on suffering, on processing things, on holding on to grievances. The text says time can waste as well as be wasted.
Okay, let's try to apply this. Let's say I get into a fight with a friend, a bad one.
A perfect example. You fight, you feel hurt, you separate. You might spend 3 days stewing in anger, then 2 days feeling sad and victimized, then a week of awkward silence where you're avoiding each other. That is nearly 2 weeks of time used for separation. 2 weeks where the connection was severed.
That's standard operating procedure for most of us. Sometimes it's years.
It is. But the text introduces the collapse of time. A miracle. A shift to forgiveness and understanding can happen in an instant. If you are able to shift your perception and forgive, effectively immediately you have just collapsed those 2 weeks.
Oh.
You deleted the suffering, you skipped the learning curve, you arrive at the destination reconnection without having to walk the long, painful road.
So the collapse of time isn't about time travel in the DeLorean sense. It's about cutting out the lag time between the injury and the healing.
Precisely. It's a shortcut. And the text says, every collapse of time brings everyone closer to the ultimate release from time.
Release from time. That sounds like the end goal.
It is.
Wow.
The text frames time as a teaching device, just like the body. We need time to learn how to love. But once we have learned, do we need the semester to continue? No. The goal is a state of unity. That is eternity. And eternity, in this view, isn't a lot of time strung together.
It's something else.
It's the absence of time. It's the now that never ends.
There's a tricky nuance here about equality that I want to touch on, though. I noted down this quote. Equality does not imply equality now. That felt a little, I don't know, undemocratic. It sounds like it's saying some people are better than others.
I can see why you'd read it that way. But it's actually meant to be very reassuring. It's addressing the comparison trap. You look at someone like, say, a spiritual master, or just someone who seems to have their life completely together, who is kind and patient. And then you look at your own mess, your own anger.
And you feel unequal. You feel behind. You feel like you're failing the class.
Right? The text acknowledges that. It says essentially, yes, in the framework of time, you are at different points. Individual contributions to the sonship are necessary right now. I might have a piece of the puzzle you don't have yet, and vice versa.
So we have different jobs for the moment?
Exactly. But that difference is temporary. The text says, when everyone recognizes that he has everything, individual contributions will no longer be necessary.
I really liked the potluck analogy we were discussing before the show. It feels relevant here. Right now, I'm bringing the salad, you're bringing the dessert. We have different roles. We are unequal in what we hold in our hands.
Once the dinner starts.
Everyone eats everything. The food is all shared.
Exactly. The distinction dissolves in the consumption. We are moving toward a state where we realize we all share the same inheritance. The separation of mine and yours just disappears.
That leads us right into this term the text uses constantly, the sonship. Now, for anyone listening who isn't religious, that might sound very theological, maybe a bit patriarchal. But the way the text defines it feels more like a network.
It is a network. It's the collective sum of all created beings. It's not about gender. It's about origin. And within this sonship, the text completely redefines a word we use every day, special.
Oh man, special is such a loaded word. In our culture, special means exclusive. If I say my kid is special, I'm implicitly saying your kid is regular, average.
Exactly. Specialness in our world is about contrast. It's about being the MVP. It's about standing out from the crowd. It requires someone else to be less than for you to be more than.
Being 1 in a million means the other 999,999 are nobodies.
The text flips that 180 degrees. It says, the specialness of God's sons does not stem from exclusion, but from inclusion.
All my brothers are special.
All of them. It's a collective specialness. Think of it like a hologram. In a hologram, every tiny piece of the film contains the image of the whole.
Oh.
If you cut a piece out, it still has the whole picture.
So if I try to make myself special by pushing others down or by excluding someone,
you've lost the definition of specialness according to this text. The text warns that if anyone believes they are deprived of anything, their perception is distorted. And because we are all connected in this sonship, if one person perceives lack, the whole family of God or the sonship is impaired.
It's a hive mind concept, but in a benevolent way. If one cell in the body is starving, the whole body is stressed. You can't be healthy if your foot is gangrenous.
Precisely. And the reality, according to the text, is abundance. It says, all his gifts are freely given to everyone alike. God is not partial. So if you look at your life and you see lack of love, lack of worth, lack of status, you aren't seeing reality. You are seeing a distortion. You're hallucinating scarcity in a universe of abundance.
Okay, but how do we fix your vision? Because it's easy to say it's all abundance, but when you're looking at your bank account or your lonely apartment, it feels very real. The text quotes the Bible here, except you become as little children. Now, I have to push back here. Usually when I hear that, I think of innocence. Or maybe being naive, playful. But I don't necessarily want to be a child. Children are powerless. They can't drive. They have no money.
That's the standard interpretation, and the resistance is valid if you view childhood as weakness. But this source gives it a very specific, almost technical definition. He says becoming like a little child isn't about being childish or immature. It's about recognizing complete dependence on God.
Dependence. That is a dirty word in the 21st century. We want independence. We want autonomy. We want to be self-made.
We do. We worship the self-made man. But the text argues that is an illusion that leads to burnout. Think about it. If you think you are a battery that has to charge itself, you're going to run out of juice. You will eventually deplete yourself.
Because a battery is a closed system.
Right. But if you realize you are dependent on the source, that you are plugged into the main grid, you have access to infinite power. That acknowledgement, I am not the source of my own power, is what becoming like a little child means here. It's not weakness. It's the secret to accessing real power. It's admitting you aren't the generator. You're the bulb.
That is a huge shift. It moves us from, I have to do this all alone, to, I just need to stay plugged in.
And that leads to the battle for the mind. because even though we are plugged in, we can choose to ignore the current. The text says the mind has to elect what it serves.
This is the two masters concept.
Yes. The source makes a fascinating distinction between spirit and mind. It says spirit is unalterable. It's already perfect. You can't break your spirit no matter what you do.
That's reassuring. Even on my worst days, the core is intact.
Correct. But the mind is the swing vote. The text says the mind can elect what it chooses to serve. And the only limit is that it cannot serve two masters at once. You are either aligned with one or the other.
No middle ground.
You can't be a little bit pregnant, and you can't serve two masters.
So what are the candidates in this election?
You can serve the spirit, what the text calls true authority, or you can serve the ego. Although, interestingly, the text doesn't just call it the ego here. It describes the alternative as placing yourself under tyrannous control.
Tyrannous. That's a strong word. We usually think of tyrants as dictators in other countries, not something inside our own heads.
It is strong, but think about the psychology of it. If the mind doesn't freely elect to serve spirit, it defaults to the ego, and the ego is a tyrant.
How so? Give me an example of the ego acting like a tyrant.
Does the ego ever say, good job, you've done enough, take a break?
Never.
No. It says, you're not safe yet, you need more money, you need more approval. What did that person mean by that look? You need to work harder, you're getting old. It drives you constantly.
It's a taskmaster that's never satisfied.
It's a dictator. The text says the result of serving this master is imprisonment, because such are the dictates of tyrants. When we aren't aligned with our higher truth, we don't feel free. We feel driven, anxious. We feel like we're constantly running on a treadmill we didn't choose.
And the flip side, placing your mind at the disposal of true authority is framed as freedom, which is a paradox, right? Usually we think of authority as the opposite of freedom. If I'm under authority, I'm not free.
In the political world, yes. But in this metaphysical context, authority, with a capital A, refers to the author of your reality. Aligning with that means aligning with what you actually are.
So it's the freedom of a train aligning with the tracks.
Or a fish aligning with the water. You stop fighting your own nature. That's why it feels like freedom. You stop trying to swim upstream against the flow of your own being.
There's another phrase in this section that I think people often misinterpret, and the text clarifies it beautifully. God is not mocked.
Oh, yes. The lightning bolt warning.
Right. I grew up hearing that as a threat. It was always said with a shaking finger. Don't mess up, because God is watching and he is not mocked.
It sounds terrifying. It sounds like retribution. But the text flips it completely. It says, God is not mocked is not a warning, but a reassurance.
Okay, you have to walk me through the logic there. How is God is not mocked reassuring?
It's a logical proof. The text argues, God is perfect. God created you. Therefore, you must be a perfect creation. If you were actually sinful, broken, flawed, or unworthy, that would imply that God created something flawed.
It would mean the artist messed up the painting.
Exactly. It would be a mockery of God's perfection. It would prove God is incompetent. But since God cannot be mocked, since perfection cannot create imperfection, you must be holy. Your wholeness is guaranteed not by your behavior, but by the competence of your author.
So God is not mocked means you can't mess up God's reputation, which depends on your perfection.
Precisely. The text says the mark of wholeness is holiness. It's a statement of fact, not a threat of punishment.
That effectively removes the stakes of earning your worthiness. It's already baked in.
And because of this, the text says that ultimately, quote, every member of the family of God must return. It's inevitable. You can delay, you can use time to waste time, you could listen to the tyrant for 10 lifetimes, but you cannot change the fact of who you are. Eventually, the signal will get through.
That is surprisingly optimistic for such a rigorous text, but getting there isn't necessarily a smooth ride. The text pivots to this image of gardening, or really drastic landscaping. It talks about shallow roots.
All shallow roots must be uprooted because they're not deep enough to sustain you. This is where the rubber meets the road. It sounds nice to be holy and whole, but to realize that we have to let go of the things we think are sustaining us.
And that feels dangerous.
It feels incredibly unstable. The text admits this explicitly. It says, as these false underpinnings are given up, the equilibrium is temporarily experienced as unstable.
It's that feeling of having the rug pulled out from under you. When you change your mind about who you are, or you stop seeking approval, or you stop relying on your old defenses, you feel wobbly. You feel like you're falling.
You feel exposed. But here is the perspective shift that I love. The text argues that our current stability is the illusion. It says, nothing is less stable than an upside-down orientation.
We're living upside down.
According to this view, yes, we are relying on the body, which ages and breaks. We rely on time, which runs out. We rely on separation, which causes pain. That is an upside-down existence. We're trying to build a foundation on clouds.
So when the text says it's uprooting us.
It's actually flipping us right side up. The flipping process feels chaotic, like being in a washing machine, but you are actually moving toward real stability for the first time.
It mentions the golden rule here too, but it calls out a distortion of it.
Yes, it talks about the golden rule distortion, the illusion that shallow roots can be deepened.
Yeah, it really hit home for me. We spend so much of our lives trying to make the shallow things deep.
We do. We try to find ultimate meaning in things that can't provide it. Status, material objects, temporary relationships. We think, if I just work harder at this job, it will fulfill my soul. If I just get this relationship perfect, I'll be safe.
We're trying to water a plastic plant, hoping it will grow roots.
That's a great image. And the text says, no, stop. They are shallow. They must be uprooted. You cannot deepen a shallow root. You have to plant in new soil.
And the miracle is the sign that the mind has finally chosen that new soil.
Led by me in Christ's service is how the text puts it.
Yeah.
And the result isn't struggle, it's abundance, natural abundance. When the roots are deep, the fruit just comes. You don't have to force it.
So to recap the journey we've taken today, it's been a lot. We started with the body as a learning aid, like a phone or a textbook that we eventually set down. We talked about collapsing time, using the miracle of forgiveness to skip over the suffering and get straight to the healing. We looked at the sonship, where everyone is special because everyone is included.
And we face the hard choice between the tyranny of the ego, that voice that drives us, and the true authority of the Spirit. And finally, the reassurance that our wholeness is a fact, even if the process of realizing it feels like being uprooted.
It's a lot to digest. But the takeaway seems to be about shifting focus from the container to the content, from the shell to the spark.
I think that's right. The invitation is to stop polishing the shallow roots and dare to be uprooted into something real. It's scary, but it's the only way to find stability.
Here's a thought I want to leave you with listening to this. We spend so much of our lives maintaining the communication device, the body, our image, the shell. We go to the gym, we curate our social media, we worry about aging. But if this text is right and the body is just a temporary phone line meant to establish a connection, ask yourself this. How much time are you spending polishing the handset versus actually improving the signal?
That is the question.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Take care.
See you next time.